Move on to our next news. Russian forces have taken control of Novokhatske in eastern Ukraine. Meeting of Patriot owner nations and Ukraine donors aiming to find additional Patriot air defense batteries for Kyiv. It could take place next week and be chaired by the NATO's top military commander. Meanwhile, one person has been killed after being wounded in a Ukrainian drone attack on Russia's Voronezh region. The incident was confirmed by the region's governor, Alexander Gusev. In Ukraine, Russia launched a massive overnight assault, sending over 400 drones and a ballistic missile, primarily targeting Kharkiv, Kyiv, and Vinnytsia. The strikes hit energy infrastructure, leaving at least 15 people injured. Ukrainian forces claimed to have intercepted most of the drones, but 12 targets were still struck. President Volodymyr Zelensky vowed to restore power supply in affected regions, emphasizing the need for more air defenses to counter Russian aggression. The relentless drone attacks by Russia continue, with air defense systems being crucial in defending Ukrainian cities. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Mark Sutherland. Thank you, Mark, for staying with us. With Russia taking control of Novokhatske and launching a large-scale drone assault, is Ukraine at risk of losing further ground without a significant increase in Western air defense support?
The biggest comment to say, overarching all of this, is that we all want this war to end. And the big issue is that, as Trump has said, he's trying to get these people to the table to have this discussion and stop this. And it is continuing. And of course, within these conversations, which says, right, look, we need to have a ceasefire by this date. We need to have a ceasefire by this particular date. They get pushed back. And of course, Russia would then turn around and say, well, we need to take as much land as we can to build a buffer zone to protect our nation. So it's always playing for time. But we're discussing this, sitting back in regard to the fact that people are being killed on both sides. There is this, the American administration, it looks like they are sending certain armaments to Ukraine. These missiles could then reach deep into Russia. This is deeply concerning. Then, of course, with Russia sending drone swarms, that's rather interesting, because with what's recently happened in Iran, they get a lot of their drones. Iran supply a lot of their drone technology. With after Israel bombing them, it's rather interesting to see if that will peter out. Where will they then get the other drones from? In many ways, we could go on and on about this, of saying the rights are wrong. We need this to stop. The de-escalation has to stop, because it is escalating up. And the other thing is, in regard to missiles, with the certain ranges that they have, with certain technology that Russia has, it has a long reach. And if the escalation then continues, and you can understand it, the countries are going to say, well, we're going to protect ourselves. We're not having the verbal assaults on us. You could say to the West, you have been providing Ukraine weapons. It's like a proxy war against Russia. The number one thing is to de-escalate it. But as usual, when we've had certain voices in the past, like Boris Johnson, who have then flown over there and then stopped any negotiation of peace within 2 weeks. Back in 2022, there are many questions to ask, because thousands of people have died and there is destruction within the Ukraine, and many, as I say, many people on both sides have died, and this has to stop.
With that in mind, Mark, can Kyiv realistically protect its energy infrastructure through current means, or is escalation of Western military aid inevitable?
I think you're right. I think it will be inevitable, because protecting the way the Russians fight is to draw the army out, is not to maybe necessarily, even though of course that's happened, but in their sort of military strategy from day one, it's about actually taking the military on, trying to not touch certain aspects of civilian infrastructure, etc. But it is going to be difficult unless Ukraine have the weapons to protect their electrical substations, etc., etc. As these kind of attacks then accelerate. But as I say, it's this whole thing of the meat grinder. The Russians have wanted to draw the military personnel on the Ukraine side into a fight to then defeat them without necessarily damaging and getting into the civil structure of Ukraine itself. But they, of course, over the last few years, have also engaged in that. But it's how they fight. But Ukraine, yes, if you've thrown nearly, 850,000 casualties or whatever, you're throwing men after men into it. I mean, Russia have been getting men from North Korea. I even believe there's been Iranian soldiers sent in there as well. Ukraine, that's the problem. It needs the military hardware to defend itself, and then Russia will see that as an escalation by the West.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic. Now we move on to our